This is Earth. But it does not look like the Earth you know. There is a corner of our planet where the mountains look like they were shaped by giants, where strange trees grow that exist almost nowhere else, where the night sky burns so brightly you can read by starlight, and where people have walked the same valleys for longer than written history can remember. Most travelers never see it. Most never even know it is here. Because this is the only country on Earth where you can stand between two oceans in the morning, walk among lions by afternoon, and sleep beneath mountains older than life itself. They call it South Africa, one name for what feels like a dozen different worlds. Over the next hour, this journey will cross all of them, from a desert that looks like another planet, to a coastline the modern world forgot, from kingdoms still alive today, to the very cave where the human story began. This is a journey to the edge of a continent and back to the beginning of us all. South Africa. In the far northwestern corner of South Africa, the map seems to run out of names. Here lies the Richtersveld, a mountainous desert wilderness so stark and so sculptural that travelers often say it feels like a land shaped by giants. Jagged black peaks of volcanic rock plunge into deep canyons carved by a single ancient river. The silence is so complete that visitors report hearing their own heartbeat. This is one of the most remote national parks in all of South Africa. The landscape is built from heat-baked red sand, crumbled rock, and volcanic mountains that turn from soft pastel at dawn to deep crimson at dusk. It is at once hostile and breathtaking. Scientists protect it as a UNESCO World Heritage Site because nowhere else on Earth looks quite like this. And yet, against all reason, life survives here. The desert is home to some of the strangest plants on the planet. The quiver tree, which the Nama people call the kokerboom, stands like a creature frozen mid-step. And the half-mens, the half-human tree, leans always toward the north, as if forever looking homeward. Botanists travel from across the world simply to witness them. But the Richtersveld is not empty of people. It never was. The Nama, a semi-nomadic pastoral community, still move their livestock with the seasons, exactly as their ancestors did for thousands of years. This rhythm saves the fragile land from exhaustion, and hidden in caves across these mountains, researchers have found animal paintings believed to be over 25,000 years old. Here, time does not move the way it does elsewhere. When the sun finally sets, the true wonder begins. With no cities, no smog, and no light for hundreds of miles, the Richtersveld holds some of the clearest night skies on Earth. Travelers describe lying in the open desert and watching the entire galaxy wheel overhead. It feels like the end of the world. But this silence is only the beginning, because far to the south, where this same ancient land finally meets the sea, two great oceans are about to collide. Far to the south, where the desert finally surrenders to the sea, the land comes to a dramatic end. Here stands Cape Town, a city pressed between a flat-topped mountain and two restless oceans. Travelers have called it one of the most beautiful cities on Earth, and for once the reputation is earned. Above it all rises Table Mountain, one of the 7 natural wonders of the world. The mountain is not just scenery, it is a living thing. Its slopes hold more plant species than the entire United Kingdom, and more than 70% of them grow nowhere else on Earth. This tiny pocket of the planet is one of the richest floral regions in the world. On most mornings, a blanket of cloud spills slowly over its edge, a sight that locals lovingly call the tablecloth. A revolving cable car carries visitors to the summit. From the top, the whole peninsula unfolds, and far out in the bay lies a small, flat island that holds one of the most important stories in the nation's history. That island is Robben Island. For 18 long years, it was the prison home of Nelson Mandela, who would walk free to become the country's first democratically elected president. Today, ferries carry travelers across from the waterfront, and former prisoners themselves often guide the tours. Standing in that small stone cell, visitors describe a silence that says more than any words could. But Cape Town was not always a postcard. For centuries, sailors knew this place by a darker name, the Cape of Storms. The waters where the cold Atlantic meets the warmer Indian Ocean have wrecked countless ships over the ages. Beneath these waves lie the bones of lost vessels and the stories of the men who never returned. At the foot of the mountain, the city tells its human story in color. The Bukap neighborhood glows in bright pinks, greens and blues, the historic heart of the Cape Malay community. Its narrow streets carry the scent of spice and the sound of the call to prayer, a culture shaped by people once brought here in chains who built beauty from hardship. And then there is the journey south. Travelers follow one of the world's most spectacular coastal roads, the winding cliffs of Chapman's Peak Drive, with its 100 and more bends hanging between mountain and sea. Along the way they pass the 12 Apostles and the quiet shore of Boulders Beach, the only place on Earth where you can stand among a colony of wild African penguins. At last, at Cape Point, the land simply stops. The cliffs fall away, and the ocean stretches unbroken all the way toward Antarctica. It feels like the very edge of the world. It is a place of endings, but it is also a gateway, because just inland from this storm-battered coast lies a hidden world of green valleys, where the air is still and the earth gives up a very different kind of treasure. Less than an hour from the city, the road climbs into another century. The Cape Winelands are a landscape of green valleys cradled by craggy grey mountains. Here, the towns carry names like Stellenbosch, Franschhoek, and Paarl, and the air smells of earth and ripening fruit. Vineyards stretch in neat rows toward the foothills, glowing gold in the late afternoon light. This is one of the oldest wine regions outside of Europe. Dutch settlers planted the first vines here more than 300 years ago. Soon after, French Huguenots arrived, refugees fleeing persecution, and they brought with them the ancient craft of the vine. The name Franschhoek itself means the French corner. Their legacy is written into the buildings. The valleys are filled with elegant white homesteads in a style known as Cape Dutch, with curved gables and thick whitewashed walls. Many have stood for centuries, and travelers say walking among them feels like stepping into a painting. But the Winelands are more than history. Today, the region is celebrated as one of the great food and wine destinations on the planet. Visitors move slowly from estate to estate, tasting wines beneath oak trees, while the mountains change color with the passing hours. There is a rhythm to this place that the rest of the modern world has forgotten. The work follows the seasons, the harvest follows the sun, and for a few quiet days, travelers find themselves slowing to match it. Yet the vine is a tamed thing, planted and pruned by human hands. Beyond these gentle valleys, the road turns east toward a coastline where nature was never tamed at all, where ancient forests still press right up against the sea. To the east of the Winelands, the coast unfurls into one of the most famous drives on Earth. They call it the Garden Route. It is a ribbon of road that runs for more than 200 kilometers along the southern shore, threading between mountains and sea. Along the way, the landscape shifts from golden beaches to deep lagoons to forests older than memory. It passes through gentle towns with names like Mossel Bay, Wilderness, and Sedgefield. The heart of the route is the Tsitsikamma forest. Here, giant yellowwood trees rise over 30 meters into the canopy, some of them many centuries old. They were already ancient when European ships first rounded the Cape. Walking beneath them, travelers describe a cathedral hush, broken only by birdsong and the distant sound of the sea. The forest meets the ocean in dramatic fashion. At Storm's River mouth, the land tears open into a gorge where a suspension bridge sways above churning water. The Indian Ocean throws itself against black rock, sending spray high into the air. It is one of the most photographed walks in all of South Africa. This same forest is the adventure capital of the coast. Nearby stands the Blokrans Bridge, home to one of the highest commercial bungee jumps in the world, a leap of over 200 meters toward the river below. Travelers also zipline through the treetops and kayak deep into the river gorges. Then there is Neisner, a town built around a calm lagoon, guarded by two great sandstone cliffs known as the Heads. Boats drift on the still water while the open sea crashes just beyond. It is one of the most beloved places in the entire country. A little further along lies Plettenberg Bay. Once a sleepy village, it has become a glittering seaside town of white beaches and turquoise water. Just offshore rises the Robberg Peninsula, a nature reserve of dramatic cliffs where seals bask in their thousands and, in season, whales pass close to shore. Hidden in its rocks, archaeologists have found evidence of human life stretching back over 100,000 years. The Garden Route is also a place to meet the gentle giants. Near Plettenberg Bay, sanctuaries care for orphaned elephants rescued from harm, allowing travelers a rare and tender encounter with these remarkable animals. What makes the Garden Route remarkable is its sheer variety. In a single day, travelers can walk through ancient forest, kayak a quiet estuary, leap from a bridge, and stand on an empty beach watching whales pass offshore. Few coastlines on Earth offer so much in so small a space. But this stretch of coast, for all its beauty, is well known and well loved. Further inland lies a vast and silent world, a face of South Africa that few travelers ever expect to find. Turn away from the coast, and the country reveals a face that few travelers ever expect. This is the Karoo, a vast semi-desert that fills the heart of South Africa, a land of endless plains, flat-topped hills, and enormous empty skies. The name comes from an old Khoi word meaning land of thirst. At first glance, it seems like nothing is here. But the Karoo rewards those who slow down. The silence is so deep that travelers say it changes them. There is no traffic, no crowds, only the wind moving across the scrub and the occasional call of a bird. This emptiness hides an ancient secret. Long before the dinosaurs, this whole region was a great inland sea and swamp. Today, the Karoo holds one of the richest collections of prehistoric fossils on the planet. Researchers travel here to read the story of life itself, written in the stone. The land also hides wonders beneath the surface. At the Kango Caves, near the town of Oudtshoorn, vast underground chambers stretch deep into the limestone, filled with towering rock formations shaped drop by drop over millions of years. And when night falls, the Karoo offers something the modern world has almost lost. True darkness. With no cities for hundreds of kilometers, the stars appear in their thousands, so bright and so close that the Milky Way casts a faint shadow on the ground. The The Karoo teaches patience. It asks the traveler to be still, to listen, to look closer, and just when the silence feels endless, the land tilts toward the ocean once more, toward a coast of green hills and crashing waves that time forgot. In the southeast of the country lies a shore unlike any other in South Africa. They call it the Wild Coast, and the name fits perfectly. Here, rolling green hills tumble down to a rugged shoreline of cliffs, empty beaches and pounding surf. There are almost no resorts, no crowds, and very few roads. It is one of the last truly undeveloped coastlines on the continent. This is the heartland of the Xhosa people. Across the hills, traditional round homes called rondavuls dot the landscape. Painted in soft blues and greens, herders move their cattle along ancient paths, and life follows a rhythm far older than the modern world. The most famous landmark here is a natural wonder called the Hole in the Wall. Over countless centuries, the ocean carved a great archway straight through a towering cliff of rock. The local Xhosa name for it means the place of the sound of the sea, for the thunder of waves echoing through the gap. Nearby lies Coffee Bay, a tiny village where the hills meet the Indian Ocean. Travelers who make the long journey here describe a feeling that is hard to put into words, a sense of having reached somewhere genuinely untouched, somewhere the rush of the outside world has never quite arrived. The Wild Coast is not an easy place to reach. The roads are rough and winding, and the journey takes patience, but those who come find something rare. A coastline that belongs to no one and everyone, where the land and the sea still set the rules. Standing on these cliffs, the traveler looks inland, and there, rising on the far horizon, a wall of mountains climbs toward the clouds, older than the bones of the earth itself, guarding a kingdom of stone and sky. Where the inland plains finally meet the sky, the earth rises in a wall of stone. These are the Drakensberg Mountains. In Afrikaans, the name means the Dragon Mountains. In the Zulu language, they carry an older title, Ugalamba, the Barrier of Spears. Both names try and fail to capture the sheer drama of this place. The mountains stretch for around 1,000 kilometers, forming a natural border between South Africa and the mountain kingdom of Lesotho. Their peaks rise over 3,000 meters into the thin, cold air. In winter, snow dusts the high summits. Travelers describe standing among them and feeling impossibly small. The most breathtaking feature is the amphitheater. It is a curved wall of rock 5 kilometers long and over 1,000 meters high, one of the most dramatic cliff faces on the entire planet. From its summit spills the Tugela Falls, ranked among the highest waterfalls in the world, dropping in a series of silver tears toward the valley far below. To reach the top, the boldest hikers climb a pair of steep chain ladders bolted to the cliff face. At the summit, the world simply falls away beneath their feet, and the great plateau of Lesotho rolls out toward the horizon. There is another way into that kingdom in the sky. The Sani Pass is a steep and winding mountain road, a rough track of switchbacks that climbs to one of the highest border crossings in Africa. The drive is not for the faint of heart, but the views are beyond words. Across the range, nature has carved strange wonders. At a place called the Organ Pipes, columns of ancient volcanic rock rise in tall, narrow towers, as if shaped by a sculptor's hand. And high above, the rare bearded vulture, one of the largest birds of prey on Earth, rides the mountain winds. But the Drakensberg holds more than beauty. Hidden in caves and rock shelters across the range is the largest collection of ancient rock art in Africa south of the Sahara. Researchers have counted tens of thousands of individual paintings across hundreds of sites. The San people painted here over thousands of years, leaving behind images of eland, hunters, and mysterious figures caught in spiritual trance. These paintings are a window into the human soul. They show not just what the San saw, but what they believed, what they dreamed, and how they understood their place in the world. Scientists consider them one of the great cultural treasures of all humanity. The mountains are protected today as a UNESCO World Heritage Site, honored for both their natural splendor and their human history. And yet, for all their grandeur, the Drakensberg are only one of South Africa's wild kingdoms. To the east, where these highlands fall toward the warm Indian Ocean, a very different wilderness waits, one ruled by hippos, crocodiles, and the tide. On the warm northeastern coast lies a place whose very name means miracle. This is iSimangaliso, a vast wetland wilderness that became South Africa's very first UNESCO World Heritage Site. It stretches across more than 300,000 hectares and protects almost 300 kilometers of pristine coastline. Within its borders, 8 different ecosystems flow seamlessly into one another, from coral reef to dune forest to open savanna. At its heart lies Lake St. Lucia, one of the largest estuary systems in all of Africa. These warm waters hold an astonishing concentration of life. More than 1,000 hippos wallow in the shallows, and some 2,000 crocodiles bask along the banks. In the village of St. Lucia itself, hippos have been known to wander down the main road in the dark of night. Nelson Mandela once described this place with wonder. He called it the only place on Earth where the world's oldest land mammal, the rhinoceros, and the largest land mammal, The elephant share an ecosystem with the oldest fish, the coelacanth, and the largest marine mammal, the whale. The coast offers its own miracles. Each year between November and March, giant loggerhead and leatherback turtles haul themselves onto the beaches to lay their eggs in the sand, exactly as their ancestors have done for millions of years. Weeks later, tiny hatchlings emerge and scramble toward the waves under the cover of darkness. Offshore lies one of the great diving destinations of the planet. At Sodwana Bay, vibrant coral reefs shelter more than 1,000 species of fish, a riot of color and movement just beneath the surface, and from June to November, humpback whales pass by on their long migration through these waters. The skies here are just as alive. More than 500 species of bird have been recorded in the park, from flocks of pink flamingos to fish eagles calling across the water. At the quiet shore of Cape Vidal, travelers snorkel in clear, protected pools. Just inland lies a sister wilderness, the Shloe-Umfolozi Park. It was here decades ago that conservationists fought to save the white rhinoceros from total extinction. Their efforts succeeded against all odds, and this small park stands today as one of the great quiet victories in the history of conservation. iSimangaliso is a place where the boundaries blur, where lake becomes ocean, where forest becomes reef, where land becomes sea. It is in every sense a living miracle. But to the north, the land lifts once more toward a high green escarpment. There, a single winding road climbs toward a viewpoint so vast, so impossibly high, that travelers could think of only one name worthy of it. They called it the Window of God Himself. In the northeast of the country, the high inland plateau meets its edge in spectacular fashion. This is the Panorama Route, one of the most scenic drives in all of South Africa. It follows the dramatic line where the Highveld plunges down into the steamy Lowveld far below. At every turn, the road opens onto views so vast they seem to bend the horizon. The crown jewel is the Blyde River Canyon. Stretching for around 26 kilometers and plunging up to 800 meters deep, it is one of the largest canyons on the planet. Unlike the dry canyons of the world, this one is cloaked in lush green forest, earning it the title of the largest green canyon on Earth. Along the route, the wonders come one after another. There are the three rondavels, three huge spirals of rock that rise from the canyon like ancient huts. There are waterfalls with names like Lisbon and Berlin, tumbling down forested cliffs. And there are the Borksluk potholes, strange cylinders carved into the rock by centuries of swirling water. But the most famous stop carries the boldest name, God's window. From this viewpoint, the cliffs fall away 700 meters into the lowveld below. On a clear day, travelers say they can see across the wilderness all the way toward the mountains of Mozambique. A short walk leads through a pocket of ancient mist forest, where ferns drip and the clouds drift through the trees. Then the land simply opens, and the world spreads out beneath your feet. It is the kind of view that silences everyone who reaches it. The Panorama Route is more than a drive. It is a gateway, for as the escarpment falls away toward the east, it descends into a wilderness that needs no introduction, a place where lions still rule, and the wild heart of Africa beats strongest of all. At the foot of the great escarpment, the land flattens into endless bush, and the wild takes over completely. This is Kruger National Park. It is one of the oldest and most famous safari destinations in all of Africa. The park was first protected back in 1898 by a president who feared the great herds of the lowveld were vanishing forever. His decision would help save them. Today, Kruger covers nearly 20,000 square kilometers, an area about the size of a small country. It stretches some 360 kilometers from north to south, bordered by great rivers and by the mountains of Mozambique. Within its boundaries roam some of the greatest concentrations of wildlife left anywhere on the planet. Here live the legendary Big Five: the lion, the leopard, the elephant, the rhinoceros, and the buffalo. These were once the animals most prized by hunters. Today they are the animals most treasured by those who come simply to watch them live. But Kruger is so much more than 5 animals. The park is home to nearly 150 species of mammal, more than 500 species of bird, and over 100 kinds of reptile. Great herds of elephant move like grey rivers across the plains. Giraffes drift between the trees, and hippos crowd the rivers alongside watchful crocodiles. Among the most precious of all is the African wild dog. These rare painted hunters are among the most endangered carnivores on the continent, and Kruger protects one of the last great populations left in South Africa. To see a pack on the move is a privilege granted to very few. The magic of Kruger lies in its golden hours. At dawn and at dusk, the bush comes alive. Predators stir, the light turns to honey, and the air fills with the sounds of a world that has remained almost unchanged for millions of years. Travelers describe these moments as the closest they have ever felt to the true pulse of the wild. When darkness falls, a different world awakes. On guided night drives, spotlights catch the eyes of leopards, hyenas, and creatures that hide from the heat of the day. The sounds of the African night are something no visitor ever forgets. This is not a zoo, and nothing is guaranteed. The animals come and go as they please, and that is precisely the point. In Kruger, the human being is the visitor, and the wild is the host. Every single sighting feels like a gift the land has chosen to give. As the sun sinks low and red over the endless bush, the whole journey seems to gather here, in this one golden moment. The desert, the oceans, the mountains, the kingdoms, all of it has led to this. But the story of South Africa does not quite end in the wild. To finish it, the traveler must return to where everything, for every human being alive, first began. Just a short drive from the bright lights of Johannesburg lies a quiet stretch of grassland that holds the deepest secret of all. They call it the Cradle of Humankind. Beneath these gentle hills lies a network of ancient limestone caves, and within them, the oldest chapters of the human story. This single region has given up more than a third of all the early human ancestor fossils ever discovered. Scientists protect it as a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and many regard it, quite simply, as the birthplace of humanity. In the Sterkfontein Caves, researchers uncovered fossils millions of years old, including a nearly complete skeleton they nicknamed Little Foot. Recent studies suggest some of these remains may be even older than Lucy, the most famous early human fossil of all. Deep below the caves lies an underground lake that has never been fully explored. Standing here, the scale of the journey becomes clear. Every traveler who marveled at Cape Town, every herder on the wild coast, every artist who painted the Drakensberg caves, every person alive today traces their story back to this very earth. We began our journey in a desert that looked like another world. We end it at the place where our own world truly began. South Africa is not one country, but many, a land of lions, lost coasts, and living kingdoms. And somewhere in these quiet hills, beneath the same African stars that opened our journey, the story of humankind is still being written.